Well, hey, welcome to, we're still trying to work out what we're calling this, but let's call it, it's about business now and what is now I guess the new normal for a lot of people. Here we are in the UK where we are just about to finish, come Monday, our 21 days of lockdown. And who knows what the next stage of that's going to be. Who knows how many more days it's going to be after that. But about now, if you're a business owner or you've small business, you're self-employed, there's probably a whole lot of pressure, a whole lot of questions that you would be seeking answers for potentially. And so what I've got is I just put together just a group of people, and I just thought it'd be really good to have a conversation with them about hey, this is business now. We're in this, where we find ourselves right now in this lockdown. How do we, right down to hopefully what's available to us, to people from when it comes to government support and things like that. So it's a pretty open conversation, and so hopefully you're going to find it helpful. So with me, I've got Adam Spies is with me. He's our general manager when it comes to at the church, at Hillsong Church here in London, and his job amongst a whole lot of things at the moment is to be on top of everything. Now he's supposed to be on top of everything anyway, but on top of everything, what is the government doing? When government's talking about furloughing employees and things like that, his job is to be on top of all of that, so we know what we can do and all of that. And so I asked him to be a little bit abreast of everything that's going on, so that if we get into, here's some of the practicalities that within, you've got a small business and you're trying to make sense of everything, then that's where Adam comes into the picture. Then I've got Anna Loback, who is with us, and Anna's what are you? I was going to call you a business psychologist, but that sounds like you're trying to be a psychologist to a business, but you're a clinical psychologist who works as an executive coach and helps executives, helps business leaders, helps leader type people, and that's what trying to build a business is about. And so you do a lot of work with people on the sort of dynamics of business, but you're also are really good at helping people keep their head in order when things get a little bit under the pressure. Got Russ Dacre. He's one of the businessmen in the life of our church, and he's been running a very successful business, and pretty much his business is selling things to people, and he's probably selling things to people that they're trying to wonder, do I really need them at the moment? And so his business will be under a whole lot of pressure, all of that, but everything, I think, fantastic. We've got Rob is with us, and Rob's a CEO in one of the big multinational companies based here in the city, and so he's been around the block a little while when it comes to the financial. I wasn't talking about age, Rob. I was more talking about your experience. You've been in the game a while, and your job in a lot of cases is to be on top of what's going on in the world when it comes to economy and businesses and insuring businesses and things like all that type of stuff. So that'll be good to have Rob's perspective on thing. And then we've got Jeff Letts, who he's a businessman, entrepreneur, all-round good guy, got a fantastic personal story about building business, and got loads of employees, and he's got to manage his business through this time. So anyway, that's who we've got. So I thought maybe we could start real big, because up big first and then drill down. So Rob, if we just start the conversation. So if someone's sitting there and we're thinking, oh my goodness, this is a financial disaster. My business, I've got to rebuild a business. I've got to keep my business going, where's where's things up? I guess when it comes to insurance, and what's your perspective on global financial crashes and how they affect us, and some of the keys to keeping yourself in a place where you can be confident you're going to get through it.
Well, thanks, Gary. Yes, as you said, I'm the chief executive of a large reinsurance company operating out of London. I think it's pretty clear. We're in unprecedented times. This is not an event that we've ever seen before, but we've been through similar types of events. And I think if I go back, I think one of the things that age does give you, it gives you lots of experience. And we've experienced some very, very similar type of crises in the past, and we've always come through it and come out the other side of it. I can think back to the events of 9/11, and for some people, they will remember that very clearly, where they were for 9/11, the World Trade Center. I was stuck in the US for a week. I was absolutely convinced coming back as a relatively young guy in our business, I'd have no job, because I thought our industry would have collapsed. The losses were going to be so extreme that we would never recover it. And I was expecting, and I spent my time when I was stuck for a week thinking about what other careers I could go into. I think about the sort of 07, 08 financial crash that happened again. But in both instances, yes, I think it brings people down to their sort of knees, but we will rebound and we will come out of this. I've got a group of people. We had 1 day's notice to literally sort of get and become fully remote. Now, as a London-based business, a lot of our stuff is face-to-face. So there was a lot of challenges, and our technology team has done absolutely amazingly, and we've been able to operate remotely within a day's notice. We had 1 test day, we all went home, and we've been able to trade through this, and carry on business almost as usual. Yes, of course, it's not as usual. Every day is different. It's a different day for us, not traveling up to the city, not meeting people, being on the phone all day, having to do board meetings on the phone via VC. But it's worked, and we've made it work. And so it is, for me, I've got to be that calming person at the top, because I have been there, we have seen it before, and we will definitely come through this, and we'll come through this stronger. That's what I've very much been selling my team, that we've all grown together through this sort of these recent few weeks. And I feel actually we're much stronger as a bond, as a company, because almost we're over communicating at the moment for where we were previously. So
okay.
It's definitely the case.
Yeah. Okay. When you say your job is to, you're a CEO, and so the principles I think still apply. When your job is to be the calming, how just what do you mean by that? Because I think when you cave into fear and panic starts to take hold, keeping calm is, what is it? Jeff's got that sign behind him: keep calm and carry on. It's easier said than done. And even when you said as a young person, you went through those couple of crashes, or on a world scale, and you went a little bit of fear and a little bit of panic, where you go, well, I don't know if I've got a job anymore. Does my industry still exist? So how does someone who's doing your job, what's just some of the things that you do just to try and get a grip, if I can put it like that?
It's quite hard to say. I think obviously I've got a full spectrum of different ages within the people. I've got people that are relatively new into the business, they've never seen anything like this before, right up to people that are actually older than me, that are probably close to retirement. Actually, everyone's dealing with this in a different way. Each of them have all got very, very different pressures, whether that's childcare pressures. I've got young people that are trying to carry on doing business, but having to manage homeschooling and childcare. I've got people that are trying to deal with people that are unwell. I've got people that are trying to deal with elderly. I've got a full spectrum, all I'm trying to do is just make sure I'm available and listening in to them wherever possible, and trying to manage the work so that we don't put up. We're trying to change meeting structures around, trying to make sure we don't put too much pressure on people when they're obviously managing lots of these other things. So all of my leaders, obviously I'm not doing it all myself, I've got a team of people, but all of us are having to make sure we're just regularly touching base with all of our employees to make sure they're not feeling that they're doing this alone, because we're all in this together. This is different for all of us. You know, this is never, I have probably worked 5 days from home in my entire life. And yet I've now done, 3 weeks at home. It's so different. And it's different for every family that's out there. So I think all I'm just encouraging people to do is not to do this journey alone, is to make sure you're regularly talking. And also the other thing is, what's happened at the moment is that your work and life has become completely blurred. And you have to have that switch off. You have to turn that computer off. We're a truly global business, Gary. So from first thing in the morning till last thing, we could be working if we wanted to. It's that time of saying, no, enough's enough. I'm not doing any more emails. I'm not doing any more meetings. I'm switching this off. I'm closing the door. Or we're doing meetings at a different time to suit your childcare because you're doing homeschooling during the day and we pick up later. All of that flexibility has to be there, because otherwise people will just get overly stretched and overly stressed and actually not be able to function.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess, so Russ, just building on that a little bit, you're running a business. I think we were having a conversation the other day. So it's not big enough to qualify for some things, but it's too big to qualify for other things. And you're sort of stuck right in the middle of trying to work out what you're doing. What are some of the practical things that you've done, being the business owner, in trying to make sure that you're gonna come out of this on the other end still functioning? I think that's the thing. I think everyone's got to, I hope anyone who's watching this, who's you're self-employed or you're building a business or wherever you're at, that there is going to be light at the end of this tunnel, and we all get to come out of it, and we want to believe that everyone's going to come out of the tunnel okay. It might be different, but you're going to come out of the tunnel. So what are you doing? What have you done? And just some of your thoughts on that. And any of you guys, if you want to jump into the conversation on it.
Yeah, just to give you a little bit of context, is the business that I operate is a car and motorbike dealerships with servicing, and we've got 12 locations. Our turnover's somewhere between, or we were planning on being at 120 million this year. I've got 215 staff. It's a great business, a lot of fun. And then obviously things changed very, very rapidly this year. Like Rob was saying, we've pretty much furloughed 200 staff in 2 days. And all of our locations have now been shut for certainly well over a week, 2 weeks. And it's been a challenging time. So it's been so much uncertainty. And then we're presented with various government initiatives which provide businesses support, which has been fantastic. But the information that you're presented initially is really, really limited, and it starts to get fleshed up over the days and weeks. And what we found was that, which I was explaining to you, Gary, while I was walking around the park, probably trying to entertain the kids and not cry at the same time, was that we're sitting between the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, which is for companies under 45 million, and then the large corona business scheme was for investment grade companies, which wasn't our own. So we found ourselves right in the middle. They've actually now changed that, but again, the details aren't available till the 20th of April. So we find ourselves under pressure, trying to navigate all of these different schemes and working out the detail whilst trying to motivate the team. So, looking at what we've been doing, we've got a great management team, and we've been using technology, which is pretty much what we use anyway, to work out how we strategize ourselves through this process. And a really basic tool is a SWOT analysis. We use them quite regularly. It's one of those things that's just part of our business as usual. And we went through and recognized that there's so many upsides, so many opportunities that we have to go at. And we started the year off, and one of the things we were looking to do was to take our business online. And there's parts of the business that weren't online. And with energy and determination, we managed to get parts of those business online within 2 days. And we're now working towards our whole business being online to transact by the 24th of this month, which will be exactly 1 month from when we went into the initial close down period to having our business able to transact fully end to end online in a month, which we could never have experienced, before that. So loads of change, loads of uncertainty, loads of detail that we don't have, but at the same time trying to work through some of those upsides and see how we can shape our business for the future.
So just so I'm running so I'm not running a business as big as yours, and I've got whether it's a restaurant or something like that. I've got a few employees, things like that. It's just bring it right down to there could be people like that listening. Just when you say you did a SWOT analysis, that you think through things, and whether you other guys got something to chip into this, because sometimes I'm very aware that when everything just seizes, and I think the thought that I've got in my mind at the moment, for a lot of people, life feels like they're stuck in a traffic that they're not get out of. Is this ever going to just the thought processes to encourage people to engage in when it's with their business? Like, I feel like I've lost everything. What do I do? And just a lot of it's, most people start a business because they're entrepreneurs. So it's all about your thinking and how you approach things. But when the crisis hits, it's amazing how everything freezes. How have you just kept yourself thinking, okay, this is not the end. I've got to really get on top of this. How have you guys approached that? Because a lot of it's got to do with how you approach it. It's not in getting through, I think, in a lot of cases. So any thoughts on that?
I'm happy to chip in. I've actually, quite interestingly, it wasn't that long ago at a Kingdom Builders event that Anna was there talking to us about how controlling the controllables. And that, I think that's one of the things that when things are melting around you, is being able to control those controllables and work out, practical day-to-day steps, things that you can do. There's probably some bits that Anna might want to chip in on that, but for me, that's been certainly something I've been holding on to, is what can I actually do today? What small things can I do to make a difference? What can I control? Because there's so much that's outside of our control. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks, Russ. No, that's definitely one of the things that I was thinking about just now. There's I think the model that there's a little sort of model that I share every now and again with my clients, and it certainly applies in this situation, which is the CIA: control, influence, accept. And it's really about taking on the huge body of research and evidence that shows that what you choose to focus on has a huge impact on your reality. And I guess it's also what Gary was alluding to when he said, a lot of this is how you approach things. So really looking at the situation that we're in right now and trying to identify the elements that you can control. And the first thing that you can control is actually what you choose to focus on, how you approach things, the mindset that you choose to have, and then the mindset that you enable others around you to have. And there will be lots of things that we can't control, obviously, especially right now, but we can certainly influence. And one of the things that we can influence as business leaders is the environment that we're in, and certainly the environment that we're creating for people around us, for our employees. And actually by doing probably all of the things that Rob mentioned earlier around, over communicating, being present, being even more present now during the crisis, noticing the individual differences in your teams, because people do respond very differently to these situations because they have lots of different factors happening around them. So really noticing all of those elements is part of the things that, a lot of it you still can't control, but you can certainly influence things, and certainly you can influence the environment that you're creating around you. And the A that stands for accept. And acceptance is not just giving up. Acceptance is really identifying the things from your reality that you choose to accept as probably as opportunities for for an evolution of your business model or even your operating model. And that's all of the stuff that, Russ, you were probably talking about in terms of looking at your current operating model and thinking how you can move things online, for instance. It's really about accepting the change, and really more than accepting, embracing the change and being more agile. And I guess one other tool that I would add to the SWOT analysis that you mentioned, Ross, is right now do a SOAR analysis. And SOAR stands for strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. And again, it's really about identifying not only the real strengths that your business has and your people have that you can rely on right now and you can amplify, because in any situation of crisis, you first of all need to think long term, not just short term. And the long term piece is really about honing on your strengths again and remembering the things that you're really great at as an individual, as a team, or as a business. And looking at not only the threats, which is what the SWOT analysis helps us to identify. Certainly we need to do that and to mitigate risk, but actually moving from strengths to opportunities and looking at the opportunities that the threats bring to us. And then the other letters stand for aspirations and results, and really helping the team and the organization map out things from a long-term perspective and from the perspective of hope that things will get better. Because again, there's overwhelming research showing that hope is actually one of the most important emotions that we can all call on right now. Remembering things will get better is absolutely key in building resilience. And it's really key also in terms of the broadening effect that hope has in terms of your own cognitive abilities as well. Research shows that when we experience hope, that actually broadens what we call your thought action repertoire. Basically, when you're able to feel hope and inspire hope in people around you, you significantly increase the likelihood of people moving from feeling great to actually doing things that are moving things forward. So it's really, really key to experience that and to create that for people around us.
So it's okay. So let me hope, right? Because the reality is for people in the picture of this is for people in our church that are you've got a business on it, because all three of you are responsible, or four of you've got your own business as well that you're responsible for, and how much for you. And maybe you start with you, Jeff, and then the other guys jump in. How much is faith helping you with this word hope? Just
Gary, I don't know how people go through this kind of turmoil without faith and belief in a higher being. I've been in business for over 40 years, and this isn't my first rodeo. It's my first pandemic. But it's certainly not the first time that I've seen the markets go up and down or people panic. And, I really believe that this time there's always positives that come out of things. For every adversity, there's an equivalent or a greater benefit that comes out of it. And while you're going through it, to have a great testimony, you got to go through the test. But for me, I've just am steadfast even when this whole thing came out, and I even called our team together, and we have a lot of our team that are believers. Not everybody is, and I said, listen, guys, in the midst of turmoil is opportunity, and so we've been giving people a steady, calming voice, telling people to pray. We have people in our business from all different faiths and beliefs, but I know that a lot of people right now are asking a lot of questions and really seeking God. But for me, I just have faith that we're going to come through this. Ultimately, God is in control. There's nothing I can do about it. I remember in 2007 when we were part of Citigroup, they pulled out, looked like everything was lost. And I remember sitting down with you, we were having breakfast, and I said, will you help me pray about this? We started a brand new company in 2007 that was Genistar, right in the middle. I mean, like the worst time ever to start something. And now we've been going for 13 years. And it's been fantastic. And what a testimony to other people. And boy, if you can come through this, think how good it's going to be once we get on the other side and your business really takes off. Right now, it's a little bit of survival, but this too will pass away.
Okay. So what about you, Rob? How does, in your position, and just how's faith?
Well, you just
faith and hope.
You just know that someone else is in control, Gary. I can't really, I've been a Christian a long time, and I can't really think of life not really being a Christian. And so I've always bought all the big decisions that all about career, direction, what's going on. And I totally agree. I wouldn't want to be navigating these type of choppy waters, without a faith. And I think, I have total confidence that someone else is in control and leading the way. But I think what it does do, I think as you said, other people have said, I think this different times, you've got to look for the positives and these different opportunities to do different things. I was listening to you on Sunday about sitting in your God chair, and I've taken that on, and the morning before I do anything else where normally I'd be rushing out, I've been using that time in a slightly different way, and bringing everything, praying about the day, praying about, and taking time out before you enter that thrust of everything that's going on, and to get direction. And just to say, it's more about taking this and letting someone else has got the tiller on your ship, on your boat, if you like. And so that's really how. But I think there's so many positives to say. If you can navigate now, and say a team now, when we come out of this, and we don't know whether it's, and that's what I said to everyone this morning. I talked to all of my staff on one call this morning. I don't know whether we're going to be out of this in 2 weeks or 2 months. I've got no idea. But we're going to be stronger as a team by sticking together through this period. We're all in it together. And this is truly worldwide. I mean, they can all talk to their colleagues around the world, and they're all experiencing the same thing. We're talking to some people in Singapore that have literally just come out the first time this week, that they're starting to ease back. And so you're trying to learn from them about what it's like coming back out again. Other people are in a different place. So I think it's, I think it's, I do feel that I've got someone here who's in control, and I'm trying to bring that calmness to everything that's going on in the day.
What about you, Russ?
Well, if you've got time, I'll just talk to you a little bit about the journey that I've been on, that I've really felt, God talking to me personally through the whole thing, which has been a massive support. Right at the start, I felt God was saying, don't be anxious, don't worry. You give all your bandwidth, give all your headspace to believing for the future, which was massive, because everything that's being presented is about worry. And we should be concerned about everything and almost, just shutting out all of the noise of the world and just recognizing that we're actually in a different kingdom, and that we're living in this different kingdom, and praying for courage and grace every day to make tough calls that involve people's lives. I felt God was saying, I'm walking with you, don't be an idiot. Like, I'm walking with you. I'm with you in this. And to know that is amazing. And then just this week, so it's gone from don't worry to, pray for courage and grace. I'm walking with you to, you're going to get through this. And just that, Jesus was, persecuted with the Pharisees, and somehow he miraculously disappeared through the crowds when they were going to stone him. And then Daniel came through the fire without any smell of smoke on him. And I just felt God saying, I'm going to bring you through this. And it's not just going to be, you'll survive. It's like you're going to come through this untouched, which is quite something amazing. And then just been really reflecting that God has given us to a life of abundance, and that he's given us to a life of far more than we could expect. And I know for me, personally, I can say, I know I've got a life that's far more than I could ever expect. And God hasn't brought me this far to let me go now. And so I'm full of faith, believing for that right now. Do I feel it? Maybe not, but I'm holding firm in my faith and looking forward to mature a little bit more, be a bit more, growing my faith through it. But it's a challenge, but it's great to have it.
So I know, you're the one that sparked you need hope. It's amazing what happens if you've got hope. How do you link that as a, you're a psychologist talking about hope, yet you're a person of faith as well. But you're not just a psychologist who's trying to help people or all of that. You're actually trying to build a business as well. And so you've got your own ups and downs of business, and, it's not like it was. Is it going to be? Are we going to survive this? You know all the talk. How does faith and knowing all the talk translate into you as a person? I'm going to get through this. I'm believing for my God ideas and all of that. How do you do that?
Yeah,
Big
absolutely.
question, I realize.
No, but it's the same question, I guess, that we're all discussing. And it's true. I in addition to doing this and to having these conversations with my clients, I run a business myself, and I manage a team, and need to manage all the challenges that come with the current situation as well. Do you know what, Gary? I think as I love how you described it, actually, and the different things that. And thank you for sharing that so openly. That was so cool to hear the different things that you felt God speak to you. And I was sort of nodding and going, yeah, wow, because that's literally what happened with me as well. And I guess for me to answer your question, Gary, it's I think we all share this key pillar in our lives, which is our faith and the relationship that we have with God, and the beliefs that become really central to how we choose to live our lives. So for me, it's exactly the same as you've described it, Russ, and I guess for the others as well. I choose to believe in what God says, and what I love about that, when God speaks to us in that way, and when we choose to believe that He is in control, that we will come out of this whole situation untouched, and that He has the best in store for us. When we choose to believe in these things, and when we feel that God is speaking these things to us, the God design that is being activated in our brains is tremendous. Because actually what happens in your brain when you choose to believe that He's got the future in your hands is that belief activates the part of our brain that is responsible for strategic thinking, for problem solving, for critical thinking, all the cognitive skills that we need now more than ever to address the complexity that we're navigating in this current situation, to be able to make good decisions and to be able to navigate our teams and our businesses through this crisis, and to keep the vision and the long term in mind. So really what happens, Gary, is I guess understanding this design really helps me and encourages me even more to have to grow this faith, because I know it's good for me. It's good for my brain. It actually helps me to think better and to think more strategically when I choose to believe that God is in control and that everything will be okay. That literally helps my brain be more effective in dealing with this crisis, which I think is a wonderful thing, because it really is God's design. We were hardwired to have faith and to keep hope alive. And I guess what faith does for us Christians is it helps us to choose hope, because choosing hope is hard. And actually, when you look at the research on positive emotions and the impact that they have on the brain, hope is the only positive emotion that only happens in a bad situation, in negative circumstances. All the others, like joy, etc. I mean, you can still feel joy and content and whatever in bad situations, but usually you feel positive emotions when you're in positive circumstances or positive experiences. Hope is probably the most powerful positive emotion out of all the others. And it's the only one that only exists in negative circumstances. And it's also the one that can really activate the key parts of our brain that will make us move forward and think better and be better leaders ultimately.
Okay, so all right, so I've sort of gone at some of the big questions with the view of, as my goal is just to talk to you guys with the thought, with people listening, to just to really encourage people that you can get through this. And we've thrown around the word, hope, and all of you talking about the situation you're in and coming through. And I always try, hope is the ability to create a better tomorrow than you see yourself in right now. And I guess for people watching, hopefully that you would have picked up with these four people speaking that being able to look at the circumstances and still project forward and see that light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train. That is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is and there will be one day a better day than you're currently experiencing right now. No matter where you're at in your business. I remember when I first started talking to Russ, and when it all happened, and I said, well, the good thing you've got going for you, Russ, is you're young enough to start again. You're smart enough to know you can start again. And the good news is you've been successful up until this point, which means you've learned a lot of mistakes along the way and learned from them, made a lot of mistakes, I should say, learned from them. So your ability to rebuild is going to be way quicker than the first time round. So even if you have to start again, getting back to where you are now will be quicker than the first time round, because you've got all this experience. And it sounds a little bit, hypothetical and all of that, and airy, maybe airheadedness, but I do believe people are going to be able to look at their situation and confidently be able to say, you know what, no matter where it's at right now, I can rebuild this. I can get my business through this, and there is something on the other side. So just on that, and I think a couple of you mentioned it as well, and I know, Rob, you mentioned it. How important is it that you got people to talk to, that you're talking to people? You fostered part of your job as the CEO is make sure people are talking with each other. I'm talking to people. So how important have you found, you guys, that you got to make sure I've got people I can talk to and talk things through. How important is that?
Totally, Gary. I think one of the things I've always said about, my career has gone right the way up, and you find yourself at the top, and it's in lots of times, it's a very lonely place. It really is a lonely place being at the top. You haven't got all the answers, and even with what we're going through, people think you should have all the answers. That's the expectation, is that you are sitting at the top and you're going to be, just within one day of us going down, you're going to have all the answers to everything that's going on. And you can work as hard as you can, but you haven't got all the answers, and as a result, it can feel quite lonely, and you can get to some, I'll be honest, this last Monday, having now had a few weeks at home, I came into my study very early in the morning, and I really didn't feel like starting work. I just thought, I'm not sure I can do this again. And it's tough. So you absolutely have to have people that you can go to, and people outside of your industry, and people that you can reach out to in the church, and real friends as well. So I've got business colleagues that I can tap into when you're at those low points and you're needing a little bit of a boost, because we all need it. Just because you sit at the top doesn't mean you've got it all right. And I think you all need to surround yourself with people that you can actually be honest with you. And that's the main thing, because again, when you find yourself as the chief executive, and so I look at myself, I don't know how it's happened, but sometimes all you ever get is people that say yes to everything you say. You actually want people to give you proper input, honest input. No, actually, Rob, you're going down the wrong path there. Or have you thought about that? Sometimes you can find yourself, everyone just agreeing with everything you come up with, and that's not what you need. So I think it's very important at this time that you're bouncing lots of ideas off of other people, touching in with different people, friends as well as business colleagues, and again, strong Christians that are out there as well. Tapping into those, because I say it's some challenging times at the moment, but as Jeff said, it's choppy waters, but we'll come through it.
What about you, Jeff? How important is it to have people you can talk to? It's funny.
I think it was Rob said, I'm busier now than I was before. And communication is just so key. I did a call today with our 40 full-time employees. These are all the way from, admin people to our programmers, just to reassure them that, hey guys, and fortunately we have not furloughed anybody, which is, I thank God that, I almost feel bad saying this, Gary, our business is actually up 30%. I think because people have all of a sudden been shaken to the core about their finances, and they're like, oh my gosh, I better get my life in order. But communication to that team, as well as our sales team and our leaders. And then for me personally, being able to talk to people, I appreciated the fact that you picked up the phone right after this thing happened. You said, hey, how you doing? And and I've got, my wife is a wonderful person. I've never kept secrets from her. So we have these great conversations, and I've got some great, and I keep hearing everybody on here talk about leaders. And whether it's in our church or whether it's in our businesses, we're just all so blessed to have so many people around us, and you can't do this thing alone. And so, it is important that we talk through these things, and we've really communicated to our people that if they're having struggles, whether it's depression or suicidal thoughts, I know it's not real popular to talk about those things, but the fact is that it does happen. Don't be ashamed to bring them out and to communicate, because we're going to get through this, together. So communication is just so critical.
What about you, Russ?
I've heard from you more than ever, Gary. I've loved it. So I think, it's been good to have a sense of connection with people. I think one of the things I pride myself on is being an encourager to others. And I feel like I've really reaped the benefit of that in this season. I haven't actually had so much time to be out there encouraging others, because it's been, full on head down, putting a shift in to try and work things through. But, getting text messages from people, getting people sending me voice notes, voice prayers, people ringing me up just saying, I'm thinking about you. I don't know a time where I've felt so connected, and that's been great. And I feel encouraged by everyone out there in the network, of people, friends, family. We've been, like Rob was saying, over communicating probably within the group. But for me personally, I just feel the great sense of our community of church and the community, the family that we've got all coming together, and it's been fantastic.
So your thoughts, Anna?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, it's so good to hear this, because as a mental health professional, knowing the impact that social connection has for people, it's really good to hear that people are feeling more connected, even more connected now, which is really interesting, because it shows how much and how important human connection is, and also how essential it is that in this time of social distancing, that we're not isolating ourselves from people, and especially from the people that really matter, and the people that can strengthen us, and that we can support as well. So that's really, really key. I think when it comes to how we can use that to support our teams as well, and the people in our businesses. I think our role as business leaders is probably one of the most important things that we can do right now, is actually to create different platforms for people to stay connected, and really to avoid isolation, because isolation is, mental health issues thrive in isolation. Anxiety, depression, those things really thrive in isolation. So the worst that could happen right now is for any of us to feel like we're distant and isolated from others. And I think especially when we're in positions of leadership, like Rob was saying earlier, sometimes it can be lonely, or it can feel lonely. But I guess, again, it's about making the right choices to really, we choose to stay connected, and we choose to have the right people around us who can support, who can help us process any difficult and challenging emotions, but also who can help us move forward. And that is really, really key. The value of community right now is huge. And what I think is really interesting is that the current situation is, we're seeing social networks finally being used for what they were supposed to be used for, which is we're actually seeing people really connect and really network through these different platforms, which I think is fantastic.
Well, I think we had just had a technical glitch, did we? Or was it just me? Anyway, it was what it was. So on that, I just thought, two things I just wanted to pick up on is, I know within the context of our church, we've got a thing called the business collective, and what that's all about is about building relationships with other people in the life of the church that are business people who have either running their own business or just starting out in business and all that sort of stuff. And so I'm pretty sure all of the details to do with that are somehow in this presentation on the business collective. But I would encourage people who are watching now, because what I want to try and do is take a couple of minutes and let's just go real practical on a few things. But if you don't do it alone, the most important thing is don't do it alone. Jeff talked about, sometimes whether it be suicidal thoughts or depression thoughts and things like that. Hey, I just give up. I've lost everything. They're very real things that can easily drop into our thinking and things like that. And it's important to to make sure that you're talking to someone. You find someone to talk to, reach out. And I know the guys on the call and in the business collective, you just need to, you want to talk to someone. There's people there to talk to, and just sometimes you just need to talk to someone to help you get perspective. And it's not just encouragement, but sometimes it's just, I need to get perspective on this. And so hopefully that's what a lot of this has been about, is, you know, just get some perspective on things. And so just some of the practicalities. If I'm running a small business, or I'm running a business. So either way, wherever it fits. If you were to go around, and I know, Adam, this is probably where you sort of can come into it as well. Just go around and just go, if you're talking to me, imagine I'm the person that has called you up. I'm running a small business and I'm just looking for some tips, some perspective. What should I do to get through this? In just practical terms, what would you say to me? So we'll just bounce around the five of you. What would you say to me?
You know, Gary, I'll just jump in real quick. You know, as I mentioned, in the midst of turmoil is opportunity. And as soon as this happened, I called our leaders together and I said, guys, how can we add value to others? It's amazing how when we have problems and we focus on helping others, we feel better. And so one of the reasons why our business is booming is two things. One is attitude, because we choose to think positively. I've switched off the news, okay? And the second thing is we've really...
Everyone needs 15 minutes of shrill in their life. Yep, but anyway.
Yeah, that's right. I listen to 15 minutes and get the updates, and then I'm done.
That's it.
And then the other thing is that we are focused on how can we deliver value to people out in the marketplace. So that would be whether you're running a coaching business or insurance or automobile or whatever it is. That would be one of the very first things I would say is, how can you add value to others in this time of turmoil?
Yep. Okay. Yep. Who's next? What advice would you give me?
Probably similar to what some of the bits what Jeff was saying, in terms of he brought his leadership team together. I guess it depends on the context of who you have around you and the scale of your business, but where there's the opportunity is to get other people in the room to talk it through, and like you said, give some perspective. But where you can get other people's wisdom, it's so important as well. You know, we're fortunate to well, they might be quite average people actually, but together we, I think, create something quite special. But harnessing everyone's energy, harnessing everyone's ideas can actually help you to come up with something which could really, like Jeff's saying, add value through this. I think one of our board said to me at the very start, I mean, literally right at the start, it's like, this is tough. This is going to involve some tough decisions. Work out right now what you want to look like at the end of this and how you can reshape to get there. And having that perspective helped me to get into gear straight away as to, actually, we can create something special through this process. And it doesn't matter about the scale. Work out what you want to be after you get through this, and then work out some of the practical steps to get there.
Yeah, Gary, I would echo a lot of that. I think when we first all sort of came together, it was about prioritizing. It was the things we needed to do now. And I think we all had a lot of things on our plates, but I think it was getting rid of those nice to haves and just focusing our attention on the critical things at that time, parking other stuff, and we'll get back to that in time. But what do we need now to do in order to make sure that we can trade through this period? And as I say, I think we bring all those things back up on stream once you've got through this period of time. And I'm still of the believer that I think teams are really built in times of adversity. And I think as we go through this, I firmly believe that the teams of people that I'm running will be stronger and more effective coming out the other side of this than we went into it. Because I think it is definitely just, I think this whole, we've had to focus on what are the important things of our life at the moment, haven't we? I think it's a time for us to step back and say what's really important. You know, this coronavirus has affected from the very rich to the poor, to old to young, no one, you know. And I think it's in that it gives us a chance to say, you know, what's important in my life at the moment, and you know, and I think that's great opportunities for us to communicate and chat and talk to people when they're feeling like that, because normally there is so much speed and hustle and bustle and everything's frantic. Here in this period, we've got a chance to step back and actually reflect on what is important in our lives. And I think lots of times things have got out of balance, and it's a chance for us to rebalance some of that stuff. It's a long-winded way of saying things, but I think it has been a good opportunity, I think for me included, to reprioritize some of those things.
Yeah, I would jump in if I in addition to that, I would say absolutely focusing on the right things, because what you focus on grows, and you want to amplify the key strategic points. I love, Russ, what you said about, you know, really getting the team to think about who you want to be and where you want to be at the end of this, and then working out the steps to get there. In addition to that, I would say also find out what energizes your people, your teams, yourself. What are the key buttons that you can push that will really unlock the energy, the drive? What will be the right drivers for people right now in this season? Because in addition to clarity and focus and good direction, we also need energy to kind of to power the boats and to get people going. And people will be energized by very different things. So I guess for us as leaders, it's our role also to understand what those things are, what are those strengths, those energizers, those key drivers that we can call on right now, and how can we encourage people to understand that? How can we unlock those positive drivers and those energizers, because that's even more important now. And again, in just building an environment around us that is productive, that is constructive, that is, you know, silencing fear and panic, because when people are operating from a panic mode, again, that sort of inhibits the prefrontal cortex, the kind of the executive part of your brain, which helps us to come up with great ideas, to strategize, to solve problems, and to come up with solutions. So that those parts of our brain are actually inhibited by the part of the brain that is active when you're operating in fear and panic. So really understanding that as well, and doing the things that we need to do in order to silence the panic and operate from a place of certainty and truth is the best that we can do for ourselves and for the people around us. Okay,
all right. So Adam, some practical things. I'm running a business. I've had to almost shut everything down, or maybe I've had to shut everything down. And I'm going to take all this advice, but I've got to get through now and try and get started again. What sort of things? How do I find out about help from what the government packages, all of that?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the most important things at the beginning, and it's sort of been mentioned a few times, is make sure you know where you are getting your advice from. There's a huge amount of information and talk and all sorts of things out there. So it's really important to make sure you're drilling down to the real sources of information. I think Russ mentioned that can be challenging because it's changing every day, and there's new information all the time. But I think one of the lessons we've learned is really you got to make sure you're really sticking to the facts and really looking for the core information. And I guess the best way we've found that is really just sticking to government advice. And there's websites that the Gov websites are really helpful. And the government's actually started doing things like webinars and YouTube videos and things where you can ask specific questions. So if you feel like you're outside of things and if you feel like things don't apply to you, there's actually room to ask questions. And so I'd firstly encourage, make sure we're getting the facts right, but also don't dismiss any of these things that you hear about because you think they maybe don't apply to your situation or your business. Firstly, because it is changing all the time, obviously, but also because there's actually flexibility in some of the things that are being announced, that are being talked about. So don't read the headlines and think that they don't necessarily apply to you. And that's I think that's the best way to really find information. And then the second thing I think is really just to keep having conversations. So we talked a bit about that tonight. Who are you talking to? But have the conversations with banks, with landlords, with suppliers, with customers, with anybody that you need to, because they're in the same position and they're reading the same things that you're reading. Again, this is all supported by the government advice that's coming out that there is flexibility. So I think that obviously the main benefits that everyone can access are things like the job retention scheme, which everyone is probably aware of. And that's one area I think it's worth really looking into, the flexibility in that. It's it's not to go through the detail now, but there are areas in that we've been surprised that we can actually apply differently to necessarily we first thought. So, drill down into that. For the self-employed, there's obviously versions of that for you. And then there's the loan schemes, which I think Russ mentioned earlier. And so I think, like I said, my advice is to, and what we've learned and what our experience is make sure you're drilling into the information to really get how it applies to you, both in the short term and in the long term.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, we've gone for exactly just over an hour now. So thanks to everybody for your contribution. And, to those who are listening, if I could, honestly encourage you, work out how to stay connected with people, talking to people inside the context of church. Maybe you're not in a church. You've still got to stay connected with people, and whether you want to check out the Business Collective and just work out what I know, they're having all sorts of Zoom conversations and meetings and groups and things like that. Just if you need to seek out people, you really need to talk through things, do that. But I just really want to encourage you to really believe that God's going to bring you through this. And the most important thing is he brings you through this, because see, if he brings you through this, then you'll be able to bring your business through this. You'll be able to do what you need to do. If you got to start from scratch again, well, then if God brings you through, you'll be able to start from scratch again. If you've got to dial things back a little bit and rebuild, you can do that if you allow God to bring you through. And so, I just want to encourage you, just have hope, and we'll get through this. And I think even the same as we're discovering in society, people are chipping in to help each other. Mm-hmm. And I think, as Adam said, you keep in touch with the people you're doing business with, you're doing business for. It's amazing how much goodwill is out there where people it's not dog eat dog. I know that still exists, but I think the overwhelming community spirit is this is not a time to be trying to destroy someone else's business for the sake of your own and all of that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of goodwill out there, and be someone that is one of the givers of goodwill, and trust God in everything you're doing in your business. So thanks, guys, for the conversation. Thank you for everyone who you have you've connected in with this, and we'll see how we go. Maybe we have the conversation again. It all depends how long we're in lockdown. We might end up with another conversation. We're out of down, and now we've got to work out how do we rebuild this thing. So we'll see how this goes, and just trust God, He's on your side. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks, Gary.
Bye.